Next up, we have Scott McDowell and Abbie McGillivray from ScotEID with their presentation, Where Do Farmers Fit in the Data Lifecycle?
Morning, folks. That's the title of my presentation, as given by EPIC. I'm not sure I know what it means, to be honest, because it's probably more how do we use data to benefit farmers, I think, rather than that's my taking it anyway. So ScotEID is Scotland's multi-species livestock database. Its aim is accurate livestock registration and tracing real time. It's real time as in real time for sheep going through markets and abattoirs because it's electronic. It's real time for pigs because we notify movements in advance, although it's not done electronically. Well, it's done electronically over the data through the database, but not through markets and abattoirs. Cattle, we try and we're trying to aim towards real time for cattle with UHF, which Scottish Government announced at the NFUS AGM would come in end of 26. So that's a positive. This is a list of all the things that ScotEID is since 2007 when we started the Sheep EID pilot to try and make low frequency work. Went live in 2010, pigs 2011, looking at try to bring in, practical EID systems for cattle in 2012. We knew low frequency wouldn't work for cattle. Cattle are individually ID'd, lifetime traceability. Sheep movements, the best we can get is 95% through CCPs, critical control points. So that's not good enough for cattle, so we looked at other technology. And UHF, which is used on a global scale, looked to be good. And we're so far through the pilot now, we're getting 100% reads 100% of the time where we're trialling it. QMS for spec, ScotEquine is our core system, ScotMoves online holding register replaced CTS linked holdings. BSE Neg risk checker, really good with it, the 3 months it lasted before we get that BSE classical case. BVD, pigeon database, the ferret database, export eligibility checker, the Avian Registration Hub, which the poultry team use for their egg inspections, and the Scottish Kept Bird Register, which is a new system in Scotland for poultry keepers to use. I will think about my messaging for Facebook next time when I do my reminder ads to try and not. I didn't think we were very negative or put too much a negative spin on why people had to register, but I will try and be more positive in the next lot of messaging we do on it. So, a little diagram there, map of Scotland, showing where the markets and abattoirs are. Some data there, some stats on the current populations for sheep, cattle and pigs. Just some data from the ScotEID systems. So 91 million sheep movements, 19 million pig movements, cattle movements, almost 4 million. Internal movements, i.e. ScotMoves, so that's moves within a business, so move for summer grazing or way wintering is 2.8, but that's vector moves. So on CTS and under the cattle regs, you've got an off move and an on move, so that's 2 moves. So we've just done the vector move for ScotMoves. 3 million plus BVD results uploaded. So ScotMoves Plus went live, that's Scotland's new version of CTS. Went live October 4th, 2021. So during that time, there's what we've registered, 1.5 million cattle, 1.1 million births, 10,000 plus imports, cross-border moves, almost 500,000, we'll be over that now. MyHerdStats. So MyHerdStats is a tool that's available to keepers, and it's a tool that uses the statutory registration, identification and movement data that they enter in Scott Moves Plus, and it gives them a picture of their herd's performance. We were going to do a live demo, but we can't quite. Abbie was going to do it, but there's no PC up here, so Abbie will do a PowerPoint presentation at the end covering MyHerdStats and what it does. So what next for MyHerdStats? So we're looking to work with SAMW, getting the weight and grade data back to keepers to enhance the data that's already there. Try to get the weight data for the livestock markets. However, they are not so keen to work with ScotGov at the moment because they used to have a contract with Scottish Government for the market sales and price data. ScotGov cancelled that or didn't renew it. There was sort of something happened. So they're not so keen to help us with this at the moment. So we're working with FSS, Food Standards Scotland, to develop links with their new database, to send them information such as the location, the assurance status of the animals, the vet, and the second part of that will be them providing us with carcass feedback data and carcass inspection results at an individual animal level. We were supposed to have that first part ready for FSS by the end of March. However, since I don't have I don't have a specification document from them yet. We met in December, looked at their spec. It was missing a lot of stuff. They then done a PowerPoint presentation over Teams with us with a document that was a proper spec. We still don't have it, so the chances of getting this ready for March now it's not going to happen. So we'll work later. Also working with ScotGov and industry partners on a pilot looking at antimicrobial usage. One of the SAOS family partners, Smart Rural, they're looking at sensor technology, heat, moisture sensors, active boluses linked through LoRaWAN. So Giles mentioned earlier about, we don't know where animals are, or we know the centre of the farm. So if you use things like maybe boluses, which are active UHF, so they've got a battery and they send a signal through the LoRa, you'd know where they are, you'd know when they went to the water trough, you'd know when they went to the feeder, you'd know if they hadn't moved for 6 hours and something was wrong. BVD, an industry-driven initiative. When we started, 40% of breeding herds in Scotland at BVD. So over 10 years, it was estimated it could save the industry 110 million, although I may have got that wrong, Jenny. It may be 180, but I can't remember exactly what it was. It's a lot of money. Yeah. So we've done it in phases. We're on phase 5 at the moment, looking to start phase 6 later this year. And it's been done gradually through testing and restrictions. So keepers are, So we're now down to around 9% in breeding herds. And what does that 9% mean? So when I typed this up on Sunday night, there were 20 persistently affected animals in Scotland at the moment on 7 holdings, and only one of those holdings has had an animal for more than 40 days. This is, it's been keeper driven. Scottish Government's they've spent money on the database stuff, but they've not spent any money actually culling animals or getting rid of animals. Keepers have done that themselves. So a little bit of work that Epic helped us with in the past when I was in government. So we used to have CTS-linked holdings. CTS-linked holdings allowed keepers to use land for summer grazings, away winterings. They didn't have to report any movements. They were supposed to record it in their holding register. through ARPID inspections, that I think compliance was around 50% at a push. So 7,000 links, which involved over 8,000 CPHs. Over 1 million cattle were possibly linked in what Jess called a daisy chain, linked together that we didn't know about because we had no visibility of them. 75% of holdings, so 25% of holdings involved, or links involved 2 holdings. 75% were linked to more than 1 holding. 25% linked holdings on a chain of over 10 CPHs. 50% were within 10K of each other. Over 400 involved distances over 100 kilometres away, and we had the longest one was 245 kilometres away, so it was the South England. Not quite sure what the business operating model was for that holding, but that's where the link was. And this is the diagram that Jess produced for us in ScotGov, and Nick Ambrose, who's the head up disease control, disease prevention team, called the oh shit diagram. Because when you see it like that, it's quite scary that all these things are linked together, and we had no idea which animals were mixing with which other animals. And that was possibly one of the reasons that they suspected that BVD was popping up in some places, because animals were mixing with other animals. Nobody knew where they were. So what next for us? So working with Scottish Government on developing a system for pig pyramids, and I think Thibault should be happy about that, because he'd done work for Scottish Government some years back. And I think getting pig pyramid data out of APHA took months, years, yeah. So I'm now looking at a system where it's going to be on ScotEID. APHA will record that, will allow keepers to go in and add holdings on that they use. Also going to bring in an automated annual reminder, just to text or email to go to keepers and say, you're currently registered, are you still registered? You still have pigs. So we try to keep a better handle on the data. BVD phase 6, looking at that now. So, also looking at vaccination capture on ScotEID for blue tongue. And I think after Sabile's earlier talk, I think I now know why I'm meeting Scottish Government next week to talk about blue tongue as well. So MyHerdStats, again, further development, looking at soil, carbon, temperature, antibiotic use. So that could become what we think we're calling MyFarmStats. So for the keeper, something that will be available and useful to the keeper. And UHF by the end of 2026. Which is probably 5 years overdue. But it's coming, and it's a good thing. And I think it was Giles, you mentioned the transport vehicles. So I think through the pilot, we had one SRUC vehicle equipped with UHF readers, and we had one transporter in Aberdeen, one of their vehicles. We do know anecdotal evidence that keepers do, or transporters do, take animals off, drop off one batch there, put them back on again. So if we do UHF, we'd know exactly what came off, went where, and what went back on again. And I'm going to pass you over to Abbie to do her MyHerdStats demo. Is it?
Yeah, it should be on there. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Abbie McGillivray from ScotEID, and I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration of MyHerdStats. So MyHerdStats has been developed by ScotEID, and it's supported by Scottish Government on behalf of the livestock industry. So keepers and cattle keepers all over Scotland have to record their information on ScotEID. So we've got all this statutory cattle registration data, and we're bringing that all together into this live database. So farmers, they have to record all this data, as I said, to remain compliant, but not all of them are necessarily looking into this data further and how they could possibly benefit themselves, whether that's environmental value or business value for themselves and profitability. So I appreciate the writing's quite small here, but Scott's went over that already, what the purpose of MyHerdStats is. So I'll just go back here. You can see the date filter up the top. So it's not a live database at the moment because we do have to allow for a month of data for 27-day birth registrations or any amendments that have to be made to passports. At the moment, the data available is, on this PowerPoint, it's to December 24, but on yesterday, we uploaded the data for January as well, so they can now see that month ahead of the year. So this CPH number here, we'll start with calving performance. It firstly gives the keeper the number of cows calved on the holding. So 144 cows calved between January 24 and December 24. They had 9 sets of multiples on farm. So the cattle for this farm are Simmental cross cattle, so quite a lot of twins with that breed. They had 153 calves registered on farm, and 72% of breeders from last year also had a calf this year as well. We've also added on individual animal IDs. So if the farmer would like to click on the column of the chart, it will then give them that 144 tag numbers. So if they want to go and relate that back to their own management and specific cows, then they can look at that as well. The calving spread shows the number of calves born on farm. This farm is primarily February and August calving, so spring and autumn. They could potentially look at this and think possibly, it could be tightening it up a bit. They could be having more calves in February and skipping out those that are in May, or they're ending up in November, December as well. Again, the tag numbers are available if they want to look at them. I should mention as well, there are description boxes throughout, so if the farmer does want to get a further explanation of what the graph or chart is telling them, then they can look at that as well. This section here, cow performance, is very applicable at the moment with the 410-day calving interval that's been brought in by Scottish Government. So farmers can now look at their herd and they can pick out the cows that are over the 410 days. So this here, we've got 17 from from January 24 to December 24. However, if that cow, one of that cows could have had their calf in February 24, and their next calf hasn't been born yet, so that could be still going on their previous calving interval. So it'll be great to see once the spring calving data is uploaded for this herd in 25, how that number may decrease, hopefully for the farmer. Again, they're able to select the columns on the chart and they'll see the animal IDs under each section. And that'll allow them, if they want to take action on that cows that are beyond 410 days, they can look into the reasoning behind that. Perhaps, that she skipped the bulling period, or there perhaps wasn't a bull working in the correct calving groups. They can look towards that as well. The average calving interval for this herd is 386 days, so it's well below the 410 on average. However, the Scottish Government payment system will be based on individual cows, so it's not really taken into account the average calving interval. This next section is heifer performance, so the first calf that animal's having. There's 17 first calvers on this holding that year. We have put a small key performance indicator on there about percentage calve between 22 to 26 months. This holding, they are actually calving their cows slightly later because they're then going in with the main management group to be bulled. So they have to be slightly bigger, possibly slightly more powerful to compete with the older cattle. Perhaps holdings that are able to separately manage their first calvers could look at calving them slightly younger. I guess it could be something that we look at in the future. We could be calving them down at 24 to the 28 months. Would only be a couple of months earlier. However, anything born in the spring will be bulled the next back end, so it's just a management practice for this one here. Mortalities, so something that everyone is obviously worried about. Mortalities means money loss, especially for farms. Number of calves born is shown on the top section of the graph and the deaths on the bottom. So this herd is mostly Charolais cross cattle, so 102 births, and there's been 4 deaths with the Charolais, and it does show you the cow deaths as well. This here is really interesting. It's showing the age at which the cattle have died. So can the farmer make a relation? Are they losing their calves at the same age time each year? Or is it when they've been housed? Perhaps they're housed in March, April, May. They're going outside for June, July, August, September, and back in again. Have they got pneumonia issues, or is there any other disease that they could be picking up on here? And that could be the reason that they're losing at certain times of the age groups. We've got cow death profile there as well. This holding, it's mature cows that have been dying. Could they look at that and perhaps that cow had been kept for a year more than she should have been? Should you have been put back to the bull again? Could they have made money from her if they'd got rid of her earlier? It's all, it's all questions that farmers can be asking themselves based on this data. The last section is the sales section. So the number of cows on this farm that were sold were 25, so that's just cast cattle. The price was good last year, so a lot of farmers were probably getting rid of that inefficient cows and probably replacing them with more efficient heifers into the herd. This farm sells their calves as store, so we're looking at the average age of sale there at 386 days, and the male slightly older than that as well. That's just an average on the herd. Obviously there'll be some that are earlier than that. And the sales graph showing the age at which the cattle have been sold. Two big sales are in March and September for this holding. The red there showing animals between 12 and 18 months. Most of the animals on this farm will be at the 12-month age bracket rather than the 18. Cow sale profile, that's just the time at which the cows were sold. They would have been weaned from their calves, and possibly anything that was ready to go away at weaning would have been sold, and anything that was slightly thinner would have been kept on to fatten and sold at a later date. The last thing that I just want to show you here is our stock take. So this has been a development recently, especially looking at carbon auditing or getting numbers for accountants. Farmers can go on to here and view the number of cattle they have in each section. So it is quite a painstaking task for farmers to find out their figures, and now we've brought this all together for them, so they've got that and it's easily accessible to them. Again, it shows you the tag numbers, so if they selected, for example, 150 cows in January, it would bring up all their tag IDs as well, so they can identify them closer. The only thing it doesn't determine between is entire males and castrated males. As the sire, it doesn't have to be put onto the passport at the moment. So that's why the males there. Anything on this holding over 24 months will be a breeding bull, but for fattening holdings, it could be that they're just a fattening animal. So that's the only thing it doesn't determine between at the moment. And I think that's everything from me. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jenny Purcell from Scottish Government. I think this is probably a question for Abbie. MyHerdStats is an amazing example of taking statutory data which the farmer is forced to report to government and turning it around and using it as a useful business tool for the farmer. So it's a pretty amazing resource, I reckon. And if I understand it correctly, it's available free of charge to all beef herds?
Yeah.
It's primarily beef herds?
Yeah, so it is available to all cattle herds in Scotland. It's more applicable, I guess, to beef cattle herds, but it is available to any cattle keeper that's registered on ScotEID.
So the dairy keepers could use it as well if they wished? Yeah,
they could use it as well, or if they've got, beef cattle on their calves or whatever, they can look at that too. So yeah, it's available to all farms.
Do you have a feel for how many people are using it or using it regularly?
Yeah, so we've got 3,500 cattle keepers have accessed it already off their own back without too much promotion. Just nice, so it's really good to see, and it's always rising all the time.
And so that's at least a third of cattle keepers, isn't it?
Third,
so that's pretty impressive.
So it's been really good.
Because it's quite new, I think.
Yeah, it was January 23. It was launched onto ScotEID. So nice relatively new still. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
It is a third, Jenny, but I think it's a third of the bigger producers.
Yeah,
so it's more than half the cattle, I think.
Yeah, it's something we want to look into as well. The CPH numbers that haven't accessed it, and if they are the smaller producers, or it could be those that don't have access to the internet, etc., and try and target that group of people as well.
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Vivian McKinnon, SRUC School of Veterinary Medicine. 2 questions, I suppose. The first is, will that data be available to regulators, for example, to pick up early warning signs of welfare problems on farm?
No, it's not. It's just the keeper that it's available to at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And the second one was, how do you see it linking into farm management systems and herd health planning systems that vets will use to advise the farmers as well?
Yeah, so we're looking at that at the moment as well, and allowing farmers to work with their vets on that health planning. And it's something that we are considering as well, whether it be through agent access, read-only access for vets is not available at the moment, but it is something that we've been looking into as well.
Okay, thank
So yeah,
you.
hopefully it can all work together.
Did I see one more quick question?
Thank you, Stephen Anderson, the Morden Group. Am I right in assuming that the death data there is only for registered animals that die? In other words, deaths pre-registration are not available through the system, because obviously that's a key part of data that we need as vets in terms of advising on reducing that key productivity loss.
Yeah, it is only registered animals. When the Scottish Government came up with the 410 days calving interval, keepers wanted to register stillborns or animals that were untagged that died, however, we're not allowed to. It was, when we've done the beef efficiency scheme, that was part of the beef efficiency scheme rules. You had to register with animals, but the guidance is if it's born and you've tagged it but not registered, you can register it on ScotEID. If it's born untagged, you only record it in your holding register. And if it's a stillbirth or an aborted animal, you can record that in your holding register. They won't. Yeah, we'd like to record it, but until the Scottish Government allow us to, we're stuck, I'm afraid.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's
Scott
okay.
and Abbie.
Thank you.